With arms, is that what you're looking for?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to bid everyone welcome to today's open house. On behalf of the Valemount Care Society, I want to say good morning and make an introduction to our next speakers. I've worked with MLA Shirley Bond on and off for the last 11 years and directly for the last 7. She really needs no introduction. She has been an advocate for this community and others in Victoria tirelessly throughout the years. So please, big round of applause for Emily Shirley Bond. To her right is our provincial seniors advocate, Isobel Mackenzie. I've known her for 14 hours.
That's enough.
But in the short time that I've had the privilege of meeting with her, along with my colleagues on council, I am most impressed with some of the messaging that is coming out of Victoria through her advocacy office. Some of the opportunities and challenges that not only this community is facing and has the opportunity to strive to meet those next challenges, but also not reinventing the wheel, bringing examples forward from other communities so we have a chance to learn from each other. We don't have the time or the energy to make all the mistakes ourselves, so we have to learn from others. And hearing some of those examples, some of those really key opportunities is something that we can really get behind. So, ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to visit our community. I'm looking forward to the open house today, the unveiling of some changes potentially at the new Valemount Cares seniors residence. And again, good morning. Have a great session.
I'm Rashmi Narayan. I'm the project lead working in the Valemount Cares facility. Today we're mixing it up. We'll talk a little bit about the design and then have you both speak so that after that it can be open to them asking you guys questions. So I wanted to introduce our board. Hugo was here, and I want to introduce the board of the Valemount Senior Citizens Housing Society. Donnie McLean is the chair. We've had a lot of meetings the last 2 days, and I think some of them have things on their plate they need to deal with. Donnie was in a meeting recently, but I just want to say she's the chair. Hugo Malik is the vice chair. He is around. I think he stepped out. The other board members are Kurian Thomas. You want to stand up? Vern Mickelson. And there's Catherine Heroy had to leave as well. Oh, there's Hugo. Hugo, I was just introducing the vice chair of the Seniors Housing Society. So Hugo, Vern, Kurian, Catherine's away, Sherry G is away, and who am I missing? Donnie, Hugo, Catherine, Vern. I think I have it. These 3, and who did I miss? Oh, Lil Basrala is away hunting. So that is the Valemount Seniors Housing Society board. And I want to also acknowledge the care committee. So this committee is basically been working just to plan and design the Valemount Cares building. And their inputs are into figuring out what spaces we need and want to make sure that the building serves the seniors when they need more help. And the care committee is also Catherine Heroy, who's not here. It's Beth Russell. Where are you? She left. Oh, Beth Russell left as well. Kurian Thomas, you understand? Kurian, just wave your hand. Laurel McCurdy, Linda Hedberg, Betty Hannes, and I know I'm missing one more. Donnie McLean is the chair of our committee, so there's 7 on the committee. It's been great working for the committee. I was hired just to work on this project, so I'm really not involved in the operations of the existing building. So this event is, we're just trying to show you what we've come up with the design for the new building so far. I am going to introduce David Nairne and Associates. It's a company that has designed many affordable housing units and supported living units and worked closely on BC housing projects. So it's a challenge to work with BC Housing to make sure our units, our projects all meet their guidelines, and they're well versed with that. The units can only be designed a certain way. You have janitor room, can't be too big, too small. So these guys know it all and make it work so that we can have a building that works for you. And our team here makes sure we do that, but they make sure that it meets BC Housing guidelines. So Rhonda is a development consultant who's coordinating the project, and Kimberley Allingham is the project architect, and they are going to talk a little bit. Yeah? Oh, yeah. Do you mind turning off some lights there? It's just, it'll help. You have to turn that on. So I said last night a little bit, sorry. So we really started the project. We started working on this in December 2019. In February 2020, we had developed a wish list we had a Valentine's tea, I remember here, and flip charts on the wall, and people were marking what they wanted to see on the building. There were 4 flip charts: building, property, services, and I forget what the 4th was. Programs, I think, that was the 4th one. And based on what people checked off is what we decided and we prioritized it based on the different funding agencies coming to the table. We knew we couldn't have everything, but we tried to make sure that what is most urgent in delivering services to seniors happens, and what is most wanted happens. And we have had other sessions. In July 2020, we finalized the concept drawings with input from the community. In March this year, Rhonda and Kim had come and presented drawings in this room. We have those plans, and they've changed a little bit. We got quite a bit of feedback from the community that some things can be better, the roof can be better, and not just seniors, but we got a lot of input from contractors as well. Tom Jamin is not here, but he's been quite helpful with us, giving input from a construction point of view, things that I have no skill set, and he's able to say, changing the layout this way would help more to serve seniors, give more privacy. So we have been making sure we have enough help to give input to the architect team. So I'll let them talk about, project phases. I'll talk about this. I know we've missed long-term care in our community. We are looking for long-term care in our community. However, making it happen is hard. And what we're trying to do is bridge the gap. What can we do to help seniors stay in the community longer if we give services? And so the first project is, I'm calling it supportive living, where we offer or assisted living, depending on what kind of partnership we have with Northern Health, where we can provide meals, housekeeping, laundry, and services, and as well as housing. This is the first phase, and the village has been a great partner because they have provided the land, and they have also provided land for the future phases, including the long-term care. So that's it for now, and I'll pass it on to Rhonda.
Good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and present this, what we've accomplished on this project so far. I wanted to quickly, just before I get into some of the presentation, Rashmi has recognized everyone else for their involvement in the project. She has worked tirelessly to raise funds for this project with other funding agencies, including BC Housing, but also CMHC, FCM, CBT, and others that she continually identifies and is able to match what's coming out of this project and what kinds of things your community has said they want in this project with the available funding. So she's been amazing in terms of bringing that forward to the table. I'm going to speak just a little bit about kind of the overall goals for the project, and then because I'm the development consultant, I'm sort of oversee the project as a whole. I'll let Kim speak to the kind of nitty-gritty design pieces of the project. These community goals that you see up on the screen here were really part of those foundational elements that were brought forward by Rashmi and the committee early on in the project when we were first engaged, and that these brought together those wish lists that were created, the discussions that she'd have previously with you, and these are what formed those initial applications to BC Housing, for example, and the other applications that have been made for funding. I'm going to read them out just in case they're a little blurry or if they're a little small in text. The first goal is to create an inclusive community where the mental, physical, and social needs of seniors are met. The second one is to house residents within a safe, comfortable, and socially interactive environment. The third one, net zero energy with a highly insulated building and energy efficient mechanical system. So trying to get that to the least costs for residents and the building itself in terms of the electrical needs. And provide for connections to nature, sunlight, and easy access to the outdoors. These are what guide the decisions that we're making for the building. So I hope as Kim goes through those specific aspects of the building itself, the floor plans, the color palettes, the landscape plans, all of those, you'll see how these goals are woven through the project itself. And they're really captured, I believe, are really captured in these social spaces that are so important within the building. So I'm going to pass this over to Kim to talk about the social spaces.
Hi everyone, it's just going to reflect what everyone's been saying today. It's such a pleasure to be here and to see the faces of the community that we're working for. So as Rhonda mentioned, the social spaces are the heart of the building and the heart of the community. And so we've provided a variety of different social spaces for the building. One of the sort of often overlooked areas are corridors, but this provides us an opportunity to create communal areas, so providing larger, wider width corridors. We can provide seating along those corridors and space for seniors and residents to safely socialise, especially during pandemic times. Another area is the lounge and dining, so providing space for seniors and guests to gather, to share a meal, to collaborate and maybe enjoy a pastime. We also have the multi-purpose room. So this is to provide space for both visiting professionals, maybe travelling doctors or massage therapists, and then also providing a smaller space for organised activities for the residents. The final social space that I wanted to touch on was the outdoor courtyard. So the outdoor courtyard provides us various opportunities to gather outside. One of the things about community as well is also connection, not just between each other, but to nature. So providing opportunities for residents to garden, to sit outside, to enjoy a nice sunny day in Valemount, kind of like today, and to really have that connection to nature. So on this next slide here, I'm just running through some of the major changes since we last met. It was great to receive all of the feedback from our last community engagement, and we've been working through those comments and working out how we can incorporate it into creating a building that meets your needs. So I've got a plan coming up next where I'll kind of point some of these out, but I'll run through the larger changes here. So in terms of the overall building, we've revised the unit layouts to sort of accommodate concerns about privacy and views into each other's units. We've also revised the front entrance to the building. There's a variety of things that we've done there in terms of simplifying the form of the building, creating a more understandable and visually apparent entrance for the building. We've also provided internal tenant storage that's separate from the units. And then we've also revised the roof from a flat roof to a sloped roof. So trying to address those concerns about maintenance, longevity of materials, and then looking at things like cost and elements like that. Some of the other things we looked at in terms of the inside of the building are revising the ceiling in the shared living and dining for it to a vaulted ceiling with exposed wood structure. So incorporating more wood into the environment, and then also addressing some concerns about acoustics for musical sessions or any kind of events that might be happening there. We've also incorporated some stained glass panels from the Valemount Church. So incorporating that element of history into the building, something that's really beautiful to look at, and hopefully will provide some colour and some really lovely lighting in that shared living and dining area. Another thing we've also done is set up the units so that ceiling lifts can be installed in the future in all bedrooms. So as it's an assisted living facility, or we understand that every resident might have different care needs. So providing some flexibility in those units so that residents can age within them and their care needs can change at the same time. We've also looked at the question of adaptable versus accessible units. So as I sort of touched on there's a variety of care levels that residents might have. So what we've done is made sure that all of the units have fully accessible washrooms, but then we've got 2 fully accessible units, so looking at things like millwork and casework and clearances and things like that, and making sure they're fully accessible, and then 16 adaptable units, so that units that can be adapted as residents' care needs change. So here we've got the building program, and so forgive me, it might be a little bit blurry on the screen, but you can see, I wonder if there's no, never mind. The front of the building there in the top left-hand corner, that's our main entrance. So you can see there we've simplified the building form there. And then we've got the tenant storage up at the top of the building in the far right corner. So every resident will have their own individual storage area for any personal effects or larger storage items like winter tires, things that you don't really want in your own apartment. You don't want to be sort of keeping those in the living room. And then in the centre of the building, the heart of the building, we've got our shared living and dining. It's centrally connected to the building and all of those kinds of items. And then I'll just run through quickly the amenities in the service rooms. So in terms of amenities, we have the shared dining and lounge, we have the multi-purpose room that I touched on, the laundry, the lift tub room, and then we have the guest suite, which I know a lot of members of the community were very interested in. So we have the guest suite there, touched on the tenant storage, and then also the garden patio and courtyard. In terms of the service rooms for the building that are being provided, we have the staff office, the commercial kitchen, which will provide meals for some residents, and then also the Meals on Wheels service. We then have storage throughout the building for a variety of needs, furniture, etc. And then we have the waste and janitor room, a public washroom, and then a utility room, so for things like electrical and mechanical items. Something that I thought was of interest, and I think we all are kind of excited about, is the landscaping for the building. So, you know, we talked about that interior courtyard, and it really kind of has to sing. It has to have some interest, right? So one of the things, these are sort of the main items here that we've tried to integrate into our landscaping plan to make it a space that you want to enjoy. So each resident will have an individual raised planter, and that will be free for residents to choose what they might wish to plant there, whether that's food or wildflowers, whatever the resident's fancy is. We then also have integrated rainwater collection barrels, so it'll be shared between residents, but residents will have access to rainwater to water their garden and everything else. We've also chosen generally throughout the throughout the landscaping scheme drought-tolerant plant species, and then also native wildflowers. And then to the right of the screen there, you can see a zoomed-in view of that interior courtyard and arbour. So lots of planted gardens, the central arbour there for people to congregate, and then also closer towards the shared dining and area, some seating and tables there. Okay, next I just wanted to touch on colours and materials. So as we progress through the design, we start looking at things like what materials do we want the building to be built from? What sort of colours do we want to play with? What interior colours versus exterior colours? And so we kind of came, similar to the building on a whole, we came up with some design principles that we've tried to adhere to guide our colour schemes. So some of the things that we've got about 4 principles here, and the first one was Valemount feel. So we wanted to keep the character of Valemount with colour combinations. The schemes proposed are intended to move away from an institutional feel and something that residents will hopefully feel at home in and enjoy. We've used colour in a variety of ways here, and so one is colour for mood boosting. We wanted something bright and uplifting for the residents on the interior, and something that makes the building stand out on the exterior all year round, but particularly in winter. I know you guys can have some longer winter months, so something that's a little bright and stands out is always appreciated. We've also used colour for wayfinding, and this is something that's being used a lot in things like bus halls or train stations, but it's a really useful tool for residents and visitors alike to identify their suites and also navigate their surroundings. And then last but not least, we've incorporated colour for individualisation. So we've used it to differentiate suites from each other and also to provide character and personalisation. So you're not just walking down a corridor of white, there's points of difference and everyone has their own character. I wanted to note, sometimes it's a bit, it looks a bit frightening when you see the colours on the board and you're like, oh God, that's what they've chosen. But this is a work in progress, it's collaborative. So we really want to hear your feedback. We want to see what you guys think about the schemes and try and take the commentary on board. So don't be frightened by finalised, it's not a final image, it's just a kind of where we're at today. Ooh, yeah. Sorry, Rhonda's just going to help. Oh, Rashmi's going to help me out here. We've also prepared a fly around of the building. So you can see here's the front entrance, and we've got seating at the front actually. There's the high school to the north there, so some seating opportunities so you can look at the view. We're coming down the side of the building here, so the exterior unit entrances, and you can see those raised planters and the rainwater collection barrels. We're coming in through one of the south-facing entrances here into the residential corridors, and you can see those wide corridors with provision for seating, and so residents can have a chat over a coffee. We're coming around here into the central corridor that kind of connects the wings, and then we'll be swinging around into the shared dining and living area. So again, lots of exposed wood, that connection to nature and kind of industry in Valemount. There's stained glass there, and so a nice TV lounge and gathering lounge. And then coming into that interior courtyard. So again, all of the seating opportunities, the raised garden beds, we have the arbour in the centre there. And then we're coming down to the south of the building here. Hopefully get some nice views of the mountains as well. And then coming up and over the building, we can see the solar panels here. So that's part of the strategy for the net zero. So any energy that the building consumes, it's off-put by what we're producing with the solar panels. So that's how we reach our zero cost. But yeah, that's where we're at with the design at the moment. And yeah. Oh.
I just wanted to speak briefly to schedule, because you're all probably wondering, like, when can folks start moving into this building? We are coming sort of to the end of construction drawings. We'll be submitting for another review with BC Housing for the next tranche of funding in December. Then we go into tender drawings. The project is meant to be tendered early in the new year, and I expect construction to be awarded at the end of April. From there, it's a year for construction. So we're hoping by spring 2024 that this exciting project will be finished and ready for move-in.
Thank you, Rhonda and Kim. Now I wanted to invite Shirley Bond to speak to us. Honorable Shirley Bond has been our MLA since 2001, so for over 20 years. And she currently serves as the critic for senior services and long-term care, as well as the critic for health. She's been a great advocate for our community, I think for schools. I remember, Shirley, when the government came out and banned potlucks, you showed up at the Dunster Ice Cream Social. I remember that. And so she's a rebel, and she fights for us, and I'm glad you're here with our seniors advocate to, share a few words.
Here we go. It starts with lowering the microphone. I always have to do that. Yes, the Dunster Ice Cream Social is actually one of my favorite events ever. My husband and I used to attend it all the time, so miss it. I can hardly wait, Nancy. It'll be back. Alice, it's wonderful to see you. I wasn't able to be at your birthday in person, but I know it was a really special one, so it's lovely to see you here. Thank you, Mayor Torgerson, for the introduction and also for the work that you did. I don't know if many of you know that your council goes to what's called the Union of BC Municipalities meetings, and they go with a purpose in mind. And I can tell you that Valemount Mayor and Council do a tremendous job. I literally run to keep up with them at those meetings because I go with them to the meetings as they meet with ministers and with organizations as they make the case for support for Valemount and for the region. So we just came back from UBCM, and certainly I know people, the Valemount Council did a fantastic job. I was very proud of them. They were very well prepared, because when you go to speak to a minister, you get, I think it's 12 minutes. Like, it's literally like they start the timer, you make your pitch, and out the door you go. So you have to be really focused and well organized. They did an exceptional job. They talked about issues related to healthcare and connectivity and all of the things that we're talking about. So I know it's dangerous to speak before lunch, so I will keep my remarks very short because I know you'll want to meet Isobel. But I do want to thank Rashmi and the committees and boards that we've met with in the last couple of days. What a great job you are doing of putting together a project that will make a difference, not just in the short term, but for the long term. And it means that my job is to make sure, and I've been given some work to do after the meetings we've had for the last 2 days about, talking to Northern Health, talking to BC Housing, making sure that when this building is built, that we have the services in it to make sure that seniors can live healthy and well and be cared for. So there's lots of work to do, but I want you to know that I will continue to work hard on your behalf to make sure that not only we get the building, but that what happens in the building is of the quality and the level of care that all of you deserve. My belief and my passion in public office has been, it shouldn't matter where you live in British Columbia, you are entitled and deserve the kind of quality of health care and housing opportunities and educational opportunities no matter where you live in this province. And yes, it's more challenging where we live, but that doesn't mean we don't deserve it. So we'll continue to work together and make sure that this is a place that, as you call it home, that you'll get the kind of care and support that you need. So thank you so much for having me, and my staff. I should mention that Shakurl and Dorothy are here with me. I bring my staff with me so that they get to meet people, understand the issues, so that when you call my office, they're not wondering where Dome Creek is or Dunster. They've actually been there, they know it, they understand it, and they know you. So thanks for having having us. I'm so appreciative, and we look forward to your comments, and I look forward to you meeting our seniors advocate. So thanks for having me.
I want to give a shout out to, I see Bobby Rowe. She's the former administrator for, Bobby, you want to stand up? She's a former administrator for the society, and she was instrumental in working and getting Valemount House. I also want to thank so these decorations, Mackenzie, she put together the decorations on the table. She lives in Golden Years Lodge, and it's one less thing on my plate, and she loves doing it. So she had a team yesterday with Flo and Helen, and they were decorating yesterday. So.
Well, I'm here outside Golden Years Lodge with the BC Seniors Advocate for the province of BC, Isobel Mackenzie. Isobel, thank you for coming to Valemount.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It's a beautiful place with beautiful people.
Great. And can you tell me what were you doing here? You've been here for the last 2 days. What have you been doing in Valemount?
Well, I've been meeting with a number of people in the community, so a number of seniors. There was a very active seniors fair yesterday with quite a few people over at the community hall, so I was able to engage with local seniors and hear their issues and challenges. I was meeting with the local mayor and council who care very deeply about the seniors in Valemount and want to see what it is that they can do that will make living here more comfortable as people get older, and working alongside the local MLA for, I think it's Prince George-Valemount is the riding, Shirley Bond, who was also here engaging with the community and will take those concerns back to the provincial legislature.
Well, that's great. And what would you say was the overriding concern that you heard from people? Was there one in particular?
Well, I think it's a theme that is in Valemount and other rural communities, which is the lack of services. So whether it is about somebody to help me in my home with things I can no longer do as I get older, whether that's clearing the driveway of snow or helping with the meals, the challenges are more significant in rural BC, and in places like Valemount there's not as much support as there is in urban areas. The housing, so where are seniors going to live in Valemount when they are no longer able to be in the home with the multiple levels and outside the city centre? Many people will be able to stay in those homes for the entirety of their life, but other people want to be able to move in somewhere where they can have some other people around them. And there's a very exciting project that the community has put together and has been able to achieve some funding support for 18 units of seniors housing, where there will be some common areas and things that people who live there can share. And it'll be affordable for those who are on lower incomes.
Right. And for those who aren't familiar with what you do, can you explain a little bit about what your role is?
Well, Seniors Advocate for the province of British Columbia, it's a statutory office with a mandate to monitor services to seniors, report out on how the various governments are doing in terms of their supports, to get out and engage with seniors and hear their concerns, and to provide an opportunity for seniors to get referred to the services that they need in their local areas.
Right, and if there's someone who has particular concerns or issues, can they contact you directly?
They can, and the best thing I would do to say would be call 211 and ask them to speak to the Office of the Seniors Advocate. 211 is a provincial helpline that was recently expanded to include all of British Columbia. It used to be just the Lower Mainland, and now all communities, including Valemount, can call 211 and get the referral services that they need.
Well, great. Thank you very much for coming to Valemount and for listening to the concerns of the community. It's greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the beauty that greeted me when I arrived.
We are really indeed lucky to have the provincial seniors advocate here. Shirley was telling, and I didn't know, it's nobody else in the province, no other province has. We are the first to have a seniors, BC is the first province to have a seniors advocate. And this is not a ministerial appointment, it's a bureaucratic position who does the research and does the work to communicate what seniors need in our province. So Isobel has over 20 years experience working with seniors in home care, licensed care, community services, and volunteer services. She's led BC's largest nonprofit agency, serving over 6,000 seniors annually. She has served on many national and provincial boards and commissions, including BC Medical Services Commission. Today she was giving us an insight into how we can apply into funding for home care, or how to have these conversations with Northern Health, because I can see you know about how funding works, she was telling me, giving me a lot of pointers on how to make grant applications. So I'm so glad you're here, and I would love for you to speak to our...
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation to Valemount. It's my first time here. I've been close. I've been to McBride. It is breathtakingly beautiful in terms of the geography, exceeded only by the beauty of the people who live here and how much they care. And it's been very, I think, informative for me to spend the last 36 or 48 hours here with you. I do want to add, you're very fortunate in your MLA. I was thinking, Shirley, that they'll write the book, Lower the Microphone, Raise the Bar, Here Comes Shirley Bond. She is tireless in her promotion of the needs of seniors and of rural BC, not just her own writing, but bringing voice to a lot of people who aren't heard with the same volume as others are heard when the decisions are being made. So you're very, very fortunate to have that energy and commitment on your behalf. What strikes me when I go out and about into all of British Columbia, I'm a person who has lived my entire life in cities, and I have spent my entire professional career in cities. Victoria is the smallest city I've ever lived in. So it was very eye-opening for me in the course of this job to be able to get out and about provincially outside of cities, and to see a repository of resourcefulness, of ingenuity, that exists in rural British Columbia, that intuitively you realize makes sense. Because when people live outside the major cities, they don't have all of the things that those of us who live in cities have nearby. People have to help each other out a lot more in rural BC than they do in cities, and I certainly see that. There's a, I don't know if egalitarianism is the right word, or an equalness might be the other word, amongst people in rural BC. You don't care what job your neighbor has, or what church they go to, or how much money they have. When they need help, you help them, and more importantly, you know who they are. And that is a real gift that people who live in the rural communities have. But the challenge is that alone is not enough. And I think the challenge for governments is that rural people are so resilient and have done so much for themselves over the years that there's a lack of understanding that there is help needed. And I've reflected on the fact that in my precious life within my urban bubble, the things we complain about not having, the people in rural BC only dream of that. They're still wanting the things that we already take for granted in the city. That is what I am struck by. The wants are so modest compared to people who live in urban areas. And I'll give an example. When somebody will complain to me because their mom is in a care home that is a 20-minute drive away. And, you know, it's all relative because this person lives in an environment where they're expecting everything is in a 10-minute walk. And then you think about the person in Castlegar whose mom is in a care home in Cranbrook because the map says it's interior health, and it's a 2.5-hour drive over a big mountain. And I know East Kootenay, you can't say the Kootenays, there's East Kootenay and West Kootenay, they're not the same. I've been educated about that. But I think there's the phenomenon of aging. First of all, it's not a phenomenon. We've always been getting older, we've always gotten old, and we've always died. What is different is we're living longer after we've left the workforce, and that is creating some challenges. And the phenomenon or the dynamic that's changing a bit in rural BC, I met a lot of people in the course of my travels, certainly colleagues, nurses, healthcare professionals. Same story. I came here for a couple of years, 30 years ago, and here I am. And they want to retire there. So we talk about, yes, you want to live in your own home, and that's what we focus on in places like Victoria and Vancouver. But it's much more fundamental in places like Valemount. You want to live in your community. I mean, forget the issue of, I might have to go to a care home, 4 blocks down the road, and I really want to stay in my own home. You want to stay in Valemount. You don't want your family and your friends to drive 3 hours to visit you in Prince George. You want to stay here. And there's a lot we can do to help people stay in their own communities. And one of the things that I think has to be better recognized or appreciated is that we enjoy an extremely good quality of life and convenience in urban BC, and we enjoy that in large measure, not totally, but in large measure, because of the efforts of people who live in rural BC. So when we think about our resource sector, our forestry industries, our oil and gas, our mines, all of these kinds of things, we could not do that if people weren't prepared to live in rural BC. And then they fall in love with rural BC and they want to stay there. And it's the least we can do to support people to stay in their own communities, because we need more people to live in rural BC if we are going to continue to enjoy the quality of life we have in all of British Columbia, and most particularly in our urban settings. And so what I found really inspiring about the visit here and about the new residence that you're going to be building, first of all, I didn't quite appreciate how far along it was. It's definitely going to happen. But the degree to which, Valemount cares, yes, that's actually a declarative statement. But how many of the people involved in this, not all, but a lot of the people I've met, are seniors themselves. It is a community of seniors helping seniors. So it's not about building this for me, it's about building it for somebody else. You wouldn't see this degree of community involvement in projects like this in the city. You would see a lot more involvement of governments and a lot more expectation of what governments will do. You don't find that in rural BC. The expectation is less because people have done more for themselves and for each other. And so I am hopeful that the challenges around some of the government funding will be met. I am hopeful that in the years ahead, there will be a better way to support people in rural communities to live there and to age in that community. Whether it's in their actual house that might be 20 or so kilometers from the center of town, well, those have challenges. But you shouldn't have to leave the town you came to get your groceries, the town where your kids went to school, the town where you worshiped if you went to church, the town where you would come and cast a ballot used to be every 2 years, now it's every 4 years. Although you're not casting a ballot this year, but that's another story. You really should be able to do that, right? And I think we need to create and be supportive of that ability. And you get this sense that rural BC is finding its voice. And, there's powers in numbers, which is the challenge. But if all the rural communities get together and say, hey, wait a minute here, we want you know, you pay the same taxes, you know, the amount of my income that goes to the province, percentage-wise, is the same as yours, and I get a lot more services, right? And why is that? And how are we going to equalize that? And I think there's a lot of, you know, I get to say a lot of things because I never have to put my name on a ballot. Because, you know, in my business, there's an old saying, everyone wants to go to heaven, no one wants to die. There's no magical solution that isn't going, when we have to share things more equitably so that some people get more, usually that means some of the people who were getting more might not get as much. And those are very difficult conversations to have. But governments are going to have it because it is not. The degree to which it's out of balance between urban and rural is becoming, I think, amplified. It's becoming worse than it might have been 20 or 25 years ago. I don't know exactly why that is. Is it because more people are staying and aging in rural communities, and so it was always unequal, but it's just more obvious now? I don't know that. But I do know that when I look at what are the services you get here, whether it's the home support, whether it's all these other, and compare that to what people get in the city. So right now in Victoria, there's a big expose. There was a home support client. The care aide didn't come for the visit. For 2 days in a row. The visit was from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. They were getting so, you know, it's terrible that the worker didn't show up. But when you look at, I mean, people in Valemount are going, wait a minute, you had someone scheduled from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m.? You know, we might actually agree that they can only show up every other day. If the day they show up, they're going to be here from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is that kind of disconnect, right, around, I mean, even this morning in the discussion around why isn't Meals on Wheels funded in Valemount? It's funded in other communities by health authorities. Why isn't it funded here? And these are the kinds of questions that I think are going to come more to the forefront. And this housing issue, there is a seniors housing issue in rural BC. Parts of it are the same as urban. Parts of it are different, actually, and that has to be recognized. That there is a different way that government needs to support housing for seniors in rural BC. And we'll see part of that, hopefully, as you go forward with this project and with other projects. But it's getting even closer to lunch. In fact, it's now, I think, lunchtime, so I will conclude my remarks. But I just want to emphasize how thankful I am and grateful for the invitation to come here. It's been beautiful weather. I've met an amazing number of people. The sense of community spirit here and the generosity of the people who live in this community is really quite profound, and you should be very, very proud of that. But that, I think governments have to understand, is not enough, but it needs to be recognized how much you are bringing to help your fellow citizens, and that all you need is just a little bit more help. And what you need is actually less than what the people in urban areas not just are asking for, but are actually getting. And you deserve that. So thank you. I hope to be back. This is a beautiful project, beautiful design. Good luck with the colors. The idea that 18 people are going to think the color that you chose is great is a bit, good luck with that. But nevertheless, it really is well thought out, and I really congratulate you for how far along you brought it. And it is the community that's brought it along. So as the seniors advocate, I thank you very much. You've done a big part of my job. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Isobel Mackenzie. I know it's lunchtime, but not often do seniors get a chance to have an MLA and the seniors advocate in the same room. So if there's let's try to keep it to 10 minutes and pressing questions, and I can bring a mic over, so I can do that. So do people have questions to ask? Okay, so Seiji, you're concerned about hail damaging the solar panels we have designed for the building and how they might be replaced. Kim, do you want to speak to that a little bit? I don't think that should be trouble. Like, if the building is damaged, the building will have insurance to.
The building will have insurance, and as part of the operations budget that Rashmi and I are working on, there'll be an operations agreement signed with BC Housing. There is a replacement and renewal fund that is built up over time as well. So those will also help pay for damage to the building and other costs as well.
So the question is, how do the concerns about rural BC go back to government? Well, a big part of it will be carried forward by your MLA. That is part of, and there are several MLAs in the province who have rural parts of their riding, and I know that Shirley will get together with her colleagues about all the other rural issues. From my perspective, I do provide insights and recommendations to government on ways they can improve things. And I have been talking about these issues in rural BC, and particularly around the uniqueness of seniors housing in rural areas and the delivery of home support services in rural areas, and how the sort of provincial framework doesn't work effectively in smaller rural communities. It doesn't mean that the changes have come. I don't think, frankly, there have been significant changes, but things work very slowly in government. And so I think both Shirley and I are hopeful, certainly with BC Housing, that there's going to be some changes and we can chip away at the health authorities.
And let me just add another important partner, and the mayor's standing right there. One of the things that we've seen in the province recently, and Isobel and I have talked about this, and remember, Isobel's job is independent, so it doesn't matter who's the government, us, them, in the past, or whatever. Her job is to bring recommendations to the government of the day. So she's not a political person. But if you've noticed lately, there is now a rural healthcare coalition where leaders in communities are standing up and saying, we have some pretty specific issues going on in rural BC with ERs closing and all of those things. So one of the things we discussed this morning that I'd like to further pursue with your mayor is looking at that from a housing perspective, because it is a big challenge to build a project like this in rural BC. When you think about, you need people to staff it, you need to be able to provide the support services, we need to be innovative and all of those things. So I think that working with our partners, and I should say that we call ourselves Team Valemount, the chief of the Sept First Nation, our mayor, our regional district rep, me, our school trustee, and our federal MP. We set aside, it doesn't matter what political perspective you have much more power when you speak as one voice. And so we work very hard as Team Valemount. So I am also going to speak with Mayor Torgerson, who has developed a very good provincial relationship with many ministers and others. So together, it is our job to take your concerns. And that has been the core of my career. I live here, not here, but I live in this region. And I care passionately about making sure that, there are so many people who believe that there's no hope above hope. And that is so not true. And we deserve quality education and healthcare. So it's all of our jobs together. But I think there are some new ways that we can have our voice heard on this issue, particularly related to housing. So we'll just keep working hard, and Team Valemount has a really big role to play in it as well.
Who wants to delay lunch further? Okay, let's have lunch, and if y'all want, y'all can come up and speak to the MLA and Isobel as well. Okay, thank you.